One, Henry, Gordon and Edward love looking at the early morning sun. It makes me think that it looks like that springtime is coming soon, said Edward, but Gordon didn't think so. Pa, he said, it doesn't to the Fat Controller. He's always making me do dirty works in the summer. I'm tired of all this. Well, that is why he wants to make everything clean until it's summer, said Henry. Pa, said Gordon, it's the coastal run what makes him do all this. That is why I hate those jobs, he said. And so Gordon puffed away with his goods train to take to the dock. And Edward and Henry had to take some trucks to the scrapyard. While they shunted their trucks into their sidings, when Henry and Edward shunted their trucks into thousands of the scrapyard sidings, Henry and Edward saw an old coach. She looked very sad. What are you doing here? Said Edward. They call me Old Slow Coach and told me that I'm not useful anymore. Now only the mice and bats riding me, she said. Well, said Henry, you may be dusty, but what can we do to help? He said. When the scrapyard manager came to see Henry and Edward, he said this to them. Come on, there's some more trucks to take to the smelter's yard, he said. But excuse me, said Edward's driver, do you know who that coach is? Oh, Old Slow Coach, said the foreman. She's been there for many years. She'll be broken up next week after when we are done. Edward and Henry were a little bit sad. We'll try and help you, said Edward, but we promise. Meanwhile, Gordon was enjoying himself. This is the life, he said, but it wasn't for him anymore. An old breakdown train had lots and lots of oil inside its tanker, and now it began to drip. And then, while it was too sunny, it caught fire on it. Help, said Gordon, it's on fire! As he steamed along with the goods train, while he was nearly at the docks. It wasn't too long until they put Gordon into a siding while his driver telephoned for help. It's fire, he said, and it's dangerous. And so the fire brigade finally came to the rescue, while Edward and Henry arrived with something bad happening. When they saw a man waving a red flag, that meant danger. There's fire inside the old breakdown train's tanker, he said, and it's caught a fire and it's dangerous, so we're not allowed before it's clear, he said. When Henry said this to Gordon, perhaps you were right, Gordon, said Henry. It's the coastal rums that did this to you after all. You should have listened to it. Be quiet, said Gordon. Just don't blame it on me. It was the stupid goods train that did all this, he said. Not me. When the fire was over, a fireman inside the fire engine told them that it was clear, and so Edward and Henry, steaming back to the shed, felt sorry for Gordon. While they were having a sleepover, another While they were having a sleepover, an alarm came in. And it also became a second disaster. Another disaster, he said. Another disaster, said Edward's driver. What is it? Asked Henry. Another disaster, said Edward's driver. A second fire disaster. We'll have to see, said Edward. Good idea, said Henry, and they all puffed away to see what was going on. The fire engine was ready to the rescue, and the firemen and the fire crew were ready. The only destination what really set itself on fire was an old hut. Was the workman's old hut? Was the workman's old hut? They lived there a long, long time, but now it's on fire. Oh dear, said Edward. The workman's old work crew hut, he said. It's on fire. When another fireman said this to Edward, we've run out of water, he said, and it's now on a shame that we have to leave the hut on fire. What about water from our tenders? Said Henry. Good idea, Henry, said Edward and Henry's driver and fireman, and they all agreed. Two of the firemen finally lit up 10 scoops of water, put it in their pipes, and were ready to spread out the fire. The fire was out, but destroyed. Now the workmen won't go to sleep and have snacks in here, said the fireman. What about old Slowcoach? Said Henry. She'll feel beautiful and comfortable, said Edward. Well, what a good idea, said the fire crew, and so did Edward and Henry's driver and fireman, so they all agreed what to do. Henry's driver telephoned the Bat Controller, who agreed. She'll be spick and span. She'll be spick and span while she is good as gold, he said. And she was. And she was, after when Edward and Henry were there. I never been this happy for months, said old Slowcoach. We know, said Edward. We're taking you there. And so both Edward and Henry bothered up to her, and they were ready to, and they went set off to her new home. And there's nothing but old or slow than Coach, and that is why she became the most beautiful coach on the island of Sodor, and she's feeling more happier indeed.